Nanaimo Ladysmith.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's an honour and privilege to rise today to speak to my response to the speech from the throne. And I'd like to thank the voters in Nanaimo Ladysmith for giving me their support to stand here today, and to my family and to the volunteers and team that supported me as well. My electoral district of Nanaimo Ladysmith faces many serious challenges that are not unique to the country, but are very acute and much more challenging in other parts of the country. I'm very pleased to see a number of key initiatives and promises in the speech to the throne and the mandate letters to ministers that will help address some of the challenges my constituents are facing. I'm committed to working across party lines in a positive and collaborative way for legislation that will benefit all Canadians. And where I see a need for improvement, I will speak up and add my voice for improvements. Nanaimo Ladysmith has one of the largest homeless populations per capita in Canada, and I'm glad to see this government step up with the creation of a national housing strategy. But I don't think the targets outlined will be enough to deal with the crisis that communities are facing. We have vulnerable and marginalized people who are struggling with affordable housing or homelessness. They need safe and affordable places to live. It's encouraging to see the inclusion of national standards for mental health support. Mental health care should be part of our universal health care system, so that the cost of treatment is not a barrier to people seeking support, especially when they're in a crisis. Many of the people who are homeless in Nanaimo Ladysmith are struggling with serious mental health issues, and the Mayor of Nanaimo has gone so far as to call for new institutions for people who are clearly suffering and unable to cope with their mental illness. Madam Speaker, like many other regions of the country, Nanaimo Ladysmith is deeply affected by the opioid crisis. We have young men with good jobs and families who have become addicted after work-related injuries. They are dying because the stigma of drug addiction has made them fearful to seek help. The war on drugs is a failure. Let's study what other countries have done to deal with this health and social issue and create a made-in-Canada solution. Alleviating homelessness and improving access to mental health care and addiction treatment services will reduce the criminality associated with these social issues and allow our justice system to focus on violent and repeat offenders. Madam Speaker, I'm also very pleased to see that the government is committed to strengthening Medicare and renewing its health agreement with the provinces, and that the mandate letter calls for a universal national pharmacare program. We need to add a national dental care program to that as well. Nanaimo Ladysmith has a serious shortage of doctors and a rapidly growing population. Vancouver Island is a retirement destination for many Canadians, and the Nanaimo Regional General Hospital, which was built in the 1960s, serves the oldest per capita population in Canada. This hospital is overdue for an upgrade to create a tertiary hospital that will provide cancer care, cardiac care, and expanded psychiatric services. Healthcare Can is calling on the government to green our healthcare infrastructure and ensure that it is energy efficient as part of the efforts to combat climate change. I hope the government will heed that call and provide major funding to keep the provinces help the provinces upgrade aging healthcare infrastructure. It's very important for my community to see an increase in the funding for home care and palliative care, but we also need to see major changes in how senior care residences are operated. The Investment Canada Act needs to be changed to exclude seniors' homes from foreign ownership. Seniors' homes should be viewed as part of our healthcare system. The recent experience with the purchase of Retirement Concepts by Angbang Insurance in China, which is now a state-owned corporation, must not be repeated. The Vancouver Island Health Authority recently had to take over administration of 3 Retirement Concepts facilities due to unsafe conditions. Yeah. Foreign corporations have no connection to our community and should not be profiting from providing poor quality seniors care. The nonprofit model of community-centered care is a far better way of ensuring that our seniors get the quality care that they deserve. Small and medium-sized businesses are a major economic driver and employ the vast majority of Canadians. I'm glad to see the mandate letters that there will be improved support for startups. But what I've heard from the small and medium enterprises in my community is there is a need for additional support for businesses that want to take the next step in their growth, whether that's innovation for new product lines, creating efficiencies that reduce waste and lower their carbon footprint, or expanding markets. Canada has been a great incubator for new businesses, but often these businesses are lured away to other jurisdictions by incentives, tax breaks, and programs that help them grow to the next level. We need to ensure that small and medium enterprises stay in Canada and continue to provide the well-paying jobs for Canadian workers. Madam Speaker, I know that the language of tax cuts has been a popular mantra, but tax cuts inevitably lead to austerity and other cuts to services, or the addition of user fees to the services that middle and lower income Canadians rely on. I support having services that our taxes provide, universal health care and infrastructure such as public transit, roads, bridges, hospitals, schools, and recreation facilities. What we need is fairness. We need to ensure that wealthy Canadians are paying their fair share. Large corporations benefit from the social services provided to their employees and the infrastructure they use as part of their businesses. The government needs to close tax loopholes, crack down on tax evasions, shut down tax avoidance schemes, and the offshoring of wealth by corporations and individuals. Madam Speaker, there are 4 First Nations in the Nanaimo Ladysmith riding, and the implementation of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People into Canadian legislation is very important to them and to creating economic certainty in our region. Building a new relationship with Indigenous people in Canada requires more than just words. It requires a commitment to respect the Constitution and Supreme Court decisions. Yeah. In too many cases, especially with large extraction projects, when they're at stake, the intent of UNDRIP is not being followed. Madam Speaker, in addition to the climate crisis, we are facing a crash in biodiversity. So the commitments to protect 25% of the land base and 25% of the marine base in conservation by 2025 is very important. The riding of Nanaimo Ladysmith has very little conservation and very little land put aside because the whole southeast portion of Vancouver Island was privatized as part of the deal for BC to enter Confederation. The Nanaimo River watershed has 750 square kilometers, but only 10 square kilometers are in a conservation area, and less than 2 square kilometers is designated as parkland. The Nanaimo River is very important ecologically and needs greater conservation. 25% would be a welcome inclusion. Like my colleagues from Saanich Gulf Islands, I see a great speech from the throne, but it's hard to be optimistic. In the speech from the throne from this Liberal government, previously they promised that 2015 would be the last first past the post election, and it's not. There's a couple of other things that my colleague from Saanich Gulf Islands has highlighted that were promised but not kept. Canadians were also promised concrete action to combat climate change, but the targets for reducing emissions have not changed from the ones put in place by the previous Conservative government before the Paris Accord. We're not even on target to meet those commitments. Instead, this government has approved environmentally destructive projects, bought a pipeline that guarantees an increase in emissions, and has continued to provide subsidies to the fossil fuel industry. It is for those reasons that I will vote against the speech from the throne. I am ready to work with this government to establish new targets, because until we commit to do our part, follow through on our commitments, all of the other issues I've mentioned will not matter. Climate change will impact every area of our lives, overwhelm our healthcare system, and destroy our economy. I was elected on a promise to continue pressing this government for real and substantive action on climate change, and that's a promise I intend to keep. Thank you.